I saw this come across my Twitter feed, and I was like, "What is this?" And usually I don't click on ads, and I was like, "But it's Ryan Reynolds, so I'm gonna click."
I don't even know who that is. So
TV actor.
What did you just say? We can't
heard
be friends
me
anymore, Carl. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Sorry, I spend my free time writing code. I don't have residual investments like you guys.
You haven't seen Free Guy, The Atom Project,
Green Lantern.
I have to work for my shit.
So
No,
this guy,
I haven't seen.
He's awesome. He's super funny, really good
Deadpool.
Actor. Yeah. The list goes on and on. But anyways, he's been doing like a string of advertisements. And this one, I saw it come across my Twitter feed, and I clicked play. And he goes into like this football league, and he's like, hey, he starts talking to the guys, and he's like, I know what you're really concerned about. We got a big game, cybersecurity. And he starts talking about password managers and using 1Password, which is Patrick and I have talked about this. He uses LastPass, I use 1Password, and I was like, clearly Patrick is now wrong because Ryan Reynolds is on my side.
I use something completely different, but that's beside the point.
Well, that's true. You're still wrong. It doesn't matter because Ryan Reynolds is on my side and I'm right.
Hey guys, what's new?
Hey, how you doing, Carl?
Hey, Carl, how are things?
You know, not bad. Can't complain, but I do anyway.
We noticed.
Yeah, well. So, Russia is not so much in the news for Ukraine last week as much as it is for Kaspersky.
In cyber news, yeah, that's true.
Cyber news.
So what happened?
You know, it's funny. I think we talked about this last week where somebody had asked me whether they had a year left on their Kaspersky antivirus, and they said, hey, should I get rid of it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, 100%. You should never be running that. And sure enough, the U.S. has now said Kaspersky poses an unacceptable risk to national security.
Wow.
Yeah, antivirus vendor. So Kaspersky is a Russian cybersecurity antivirus firm.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, there's risk for every vendor in the world carries some risk that they're going to be co-opted by their government. It's just much less common and much harder to pull off in a liberal democracy like the United States because the company gets a vote. Whereas in Russia, if Putin comes and says, you're going to do this, they're pretty much going to do that.
Was that your Putin accent, Patrick?
No, I don't.
Can you do that again?
I don't
do
accents
anymore.
I don't do the accents or only you can do the imitation.
It sounded like you had your shirt off, though. I'm just saying. You're going to do this.
That was the horse making noises.
But with Kaspersky, it's interesting because it's not the first time Kaspersky has been in the news for taking, secrets. That I think we talked about the fact that they were indexing top secret documents that were installed on government workers' PCs in the U.S. government, and they would pull them all to Russia and then go, "Oh, we deleted them. Yeah, our bad."
So I heard the air quotes there.
Yes.
I heard them. There were air quotes around that indexing.
Sounded like he had his shirt off.
Always. So needless to say, you got to be careful with any company that's going to be taking files from your hard drive and bringing them up into the cloud or analyzing them or doing whatever, because honestly, any antivirus vendor or EDR could pick up your files and shuttle them anywhere. I don't know that you would know because you've given them permissions to operate at the highest level in the operating system.
EDR? What's an EDR?
So that's a endpoint detection and response system. So the things like CrowdStrike, Carbon Black.
Still have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, so think kind of like antivirus, but much better.
More spidery.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't just look at a file and go, okay, well, does this match a signature? It says, well, what is this file doing? What is it accessing? Should it be accessing those
behavioral
things?
profiling.
Does this file normally access those things? And when it does notify something is actually malicious, a lot of the EDRs will keep track of the entire history of what happened. Oh, I saw this file actually come through Internet Explorer, and I saw it spin up a new thread, and I saw it access email, and I saw it do this, right? So now you have this full chain where you can say, okay, I understand how this thing breached a system.
My youngest daughter, whose birthday it is today, just said, "What's Internet Explorer?"
Wow.
She's in her 20s.
Listen, Edge? Should I say Edge?
Almost.
I don't think she knows what Edge is either.
Firefox?
Yeah, just one more admission of how old we are.
I don't know the younger generations stratify their browsers into versions or
back when I was using Mozilla. Yeah.
No, it's just Chrome
or Safari.
True. Yeah. All right. So Kaspersky bad. Get it out. Don't use it. But you were talking about anytime you take files and move them. I mean, how are we supposed to know? How is Joe user supposed to know what the hell goes on when, Bob from IT comes by and says, yeah, I need a backup and just takes your files? I mean, how do you know what's going on? What are you going to do? Sit down and question them? Where are they going? What are you going to do with them?
Sure. I think you should, honestly. I mean, anybody who wants your files, even if it's just software, you install OneDrive and it's is it okay for us to back your files up? I think you should investigate, okay, Dwayne, where are they going and who has access to them?
Didn't our old friend Josh have an incident where we were talking to him about social engineering? This is about a decade ago, and he questioned a guy in a uniform, and the guy went out, oh, I forgot the paperwork in my truck, and he left, and he never came back.
Yep.
Because he had...
What?
We had been talking about social engineering. No,
never came back?
The problem was...
it was a replacement of hard drives. Yeah,
a guy came in. Guy came into the office in a uniform and said, "I'm here to pick up the system."
He was picking up a server. I know one of your Dell servers is having an issue. I'm here to pick up the Dell server. We're going to work on it. And
our friend Josh had just listened to us talk about social engineering. I think we were playing a video game at the time. It wasn't even a presentation. We were just talking about it. And he decided to challenge the guy. And he says, "I need you to see your credentials in the work order." And the guy's like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I mean, of course I have paperwork. Why wouldn't I have paperwork? He's like, I just need to see it. And he's like, he looks in his bag. He's like, it's probably in the truck. He's like, you're not coming back, are you? And he's like, of course I'll be back. And the guy left and never came back because he was there to steal a server. And that happens. You have to question it. The whole thing of assumption is what social engineering depends upon.
Yeah.
100%.
Man, oh man, oh man. All right, so it's the same old story. Trust nobody, and when Bob from IT comes down and asks for a hard drive, say, no.
Yeah, give him the slap down.
Go screw yourself, Bob.
Right.
No soup for you. All right, so I lied when I said Russia really isn't in the news other than Kaspersky, but some serious downstream problems here facing Russia in the wake of all this stuff that's going on.
So if I may shift to the kinetic war for a moment.
Ooh, do that.
So the word on the street or in the skies is that Russia, since 2014, because of sanctions, hasn't been able to replenish their supply of smart munitions. And it's one of the reasons why they're throwing so many dumb bombs. And they're even throwing dumb bombs off of their high-end planes, which requires them to fly low.
Military guys have words for everything. Smart munitions, dumb bombs. I get smart and dumb.
A smart munition can be fired and hit exactly what you're trying to hit. A dumb one is you throw thousands of them and hope you kill the thing you're trying to kill.
So a smart munition has GPS.
And it's going to hit exactly. The U.S. demonstrated an ability to do amazing damage to very point targets with as little collateral damage as possible. Still collateral damage and still very controversial. But Russia's just destroying entire cities because they're out of their precision munitions. And they can't build them because of tech requirements and because of sanctions. And it's causing them to lose their planes because they have to fly lower to hit their targets because they can't just fire it and trust it'll hit the target because it's guided. They have to actually make sure they're flying in the right position. So it's causing horrible effects in the war front as well, but it's absolutely makes perfect sense that it's causing them problems with replacing hards, computer systems and things like that.
Yeah. So that's what our next story is from Bleeping Computer. Russia facing internet outages due to equipment shortage. So you think you have supply chain problems in America?
Right.
Go live in Russia.
Are there any computer equipment manufacturers out of Russia?
Not that I know of.
They're not
that kind of. They're not at that level of the OSI model.
So okay, wait a second, Patrick. So isn't China kind of Russia's buddy?
Yes.
We think so.
And doesn't China kind of make everything?
They make lots of the lower end components and assemblies, but a lot of the component pieces are from Japan and Korea and the United States as well. Think about chips. The chips get manufactured in Taiwan in a lot of cases, but they're designed in other places.
Got it. Okay.
Although it doesn't matter where they're designed. If you want to order some, you go to Taiwan or whatever.
Yeah. So, if you want a stabilizer or something like that, our manufacturing and Germany's manufacturing are far more adapted to munitions manufacture than China's or Japan's or any of those other countries. They're more in the commercial spaces. A lot of this stuff is high end for the military, and that also bleeds into the computer sector.
How goes I know we don't have a story on this, but I don't think. But how goes the hacking war with people, hacking Russia versus Russia hacking everyone else?
I think Russia's losing that one.
Yeah. Russia's definitely having a hard time. However, a lot of it's gone quiet over the last week.
Yeah.
So
I noticed.
I think the world's been focused on Lapsus, and we'll talk a little bit about Lapsus. We have a couple of stories about them, but it's I haven't heard major news either way from either Ukraine or from Russia this week.
So the internet outages are due to equipment shortages, meaning a router breaks down, they can't replace it.
Yeah.
They run out of cables because,
hardware just
keeps stealing them.
It has a failure time. It just sometimes it fails. And when you have millions of devices in the country, some number are going to go bad every week. And if there's no new ones coming in, you got to do without or strip, from other places.
Yeah, but okay, so does this point at the dilapidated systems that might be in Russia? Because I know in my state, if we couldn't buy new switches and telco equipment, we'd probably run longer than a couple weeks, right?
Well, that's if you had old ones that you could swap in. But because of the globalization that we've seen, people don't store anything. There's no inventory. Inventory is a bad thing. It's always just-in-time shipping.
Apparently, that's not the only problem, guys. That this article says another big headache for IT firms in Russia is the manifestation of a mass exodus
of IT
of skilled personnel fleeing the country in herds.
There's a guy that's supposedly close to the industry who believes he thinks at least 100,000 of the tech personnel have fled Russia, and that's just in the tech space. They have a brain drain.
Yeah, the article says, according to the latest data provided by the Russian Association for Electronic Communications, between 50,000 and 70,000 IT experts have already left the country, and another 100,000 may do the same by April. Well, it's about April now.
So, right.
Wow.
The hits are going to just keep hitting. We could devolve into the war itself, but the pain for Russia is starting to mount, and it's just going to keep mounting. I don't know if you heard that they have a very large number of troops expected to be radiation poisoned because they were digging in Chernobyl.
I heard that. Yeah,
Wow.
Even just driving to Chernobyl without protective gear. Yeah. Like all that heavy armor was kicking up dust and all. And they jump right out of the vehicle.
I heard. I don't know if I didn't get two sources for this, but I heard that they actually had them digging trenches in the Red Forest, where the dust has settled, and who knows how many they lost that way. So I'm not surprised by the bad news from Russia continuing to tick in, whether it's on the technical, cyber, or the actual military front.
I really feel bad for the population though, because they're living under a dictator and they have no freedoms of speech, and now it's like old Soviet times.
But they're the only ones who can change that government. We can't.
Yeah.
On a lighter note.
All right. Anyway, let's get back to hacking here. Let's talk about Microsoft, because they're always fun.
It's not Russia, it's Microsoft, right?
Right.
It's right. Exchange, which let me translate that for millennials. It's like your grandpa's old Ford pickup truck. Microsoft Exchange.
Wow.
Nobody uses it anymore. It kind of sits in the driveway. That's not true. A lot of people still use it, but it's a 90s
Well, running
technology.
it yourself is very passé.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. If you're running your own Exchange server, don't put it.
Even
somewhere.
Richard Campbell got rid of his Exchange server.
Listen, a lot of us old timers enjoyed tinkering with putting together a mail server or a network or whatever, but it's not.
That joy is over. That joy is
over. Yeah. Joey's dead.
Yeah.
Should be buried. This is a new twist on an older malware campaign called Iced ID malware. Interesting. The only sort of interesting thing here, I mean, the punchline is if you run your own Exchange server, go patch it. That's always the punchline.
No, move it to the cloud.
Well, yeah, there you go.
What are you doing?
Put it in your driveway, set it on fire, and then start a new thing in the cloud. But the interesting thing about this is it's a lot of the deployment of malware and ransomware all comes from tricking someone, conning someone into doing something.
Right.
So this particular attack comes from the inside. You'll compromise a username and password for somebody's Exchange account. So you can send emails, and then they send emails as someone who's in the company. So it'd be like Patrick sending me an email going, hey, I have this, invoice I need you to open up and check it came from wherever. And they can be very convincing because what we'll see is if I have access to Patrick's inbox, I can go through and see all the conversations Patrick and I have had. And then you can formulate a very convincing email to me that I may go, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll open that. So that's just the interesting thing about this particular resurgence of this attack is it hijacks existing threads, but it's still just trying to con you to click on something.
Exactly. That's what it all comes down to.
Okay, I get it. So what happened with Shutterfly and Conti?
Oh, Conti. So
another victim.
And we talked about last week how Conti was breached and all of their internal communications were leaked and all of their code for their ransomware was leaked.
Right.
Unfortunately, that came 3 months too late for Shutterfly. Because according to this article, Shutterfly has just disclosed the data breach that exposed employee information threat actors stole with using the Conti ransomware attack. And this was December 3rd. So December 3rd of last year, they got hit. Shutterfly didn't recognize the attack until I believe they said the 13th.
Ouch.
So that's 10 days that the ransomware software was running in the background, siphoning off information.
They showed a browser, like a Conti browser that was running on Shutterfly, and it says something like data will be published after 5 days, 5 hours, 16 minutes, 34 seconds. It's like counting down. Yeah. So it's like this is how much time you have to
pay the ransom.
Before everything gets leaked.
Yeah, and according to the article, the ransomware operation released about 7 gig worth of data.
Wow.
So I mean, honestly, if you're in there for 10 days, they should have been able to pull quite a bit. Well, not all the photos, but at least quite a bit of sensitive information.
They also might not have been able to find it because of the massive data.
Sure. Right. Yeah. So it's interesting in that you got to be careful. Like I know we use Shutterfly, and I'm sure there are years and years and years of pictures of my kids and family and vacations and all that good stuff on Shutterfly. So you always get concerned when data like that sits out there. If it doesn't need to be out there, I'd remove it. Right? Don't keep old photos and old photo books and that sort of stuff out there.
Well, people don't see how that's risky, but it allows them to understand more about you and then try to manipulate you better. Because they can say, oh, last March you were at Disney and, you sent me this picture. And I could convince you that you know me from high school. Sure. Because I've been talking to your wife all these years based on pictures.
Yep.
I can paint a picture.
100%.
Remember Groundhog Day, the movie with Bill Murray?
Oh, yeah. Great movie. Great book.
So
great movie.
In Groundhog Day, he walks up to this woman and he asks, what school she went to, who her third grade teacher was. And I forget the third question. And then the next day he convinced her that he sat behind her in English class.
Right.
And so it's literally that easy. And they don't trust their memory. They're not reliable witnesses. And so even things that seem innocent, because a lot of people are probably listening to what you said, Dwayne, and they're like, so what? They get some pictures. With those pictures, I can build a believable tapestry to make you trust that I am who I say I am and get you to do something.
Yeah. So, Dwayne, you were talking about how Kaspersky was called by the U.S. government like a huge
threat,
national security threat.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with the this article here in Bleepy Computer? U.S. national emergency extended due to elevated malicious cyber activity. Is it more than Kaspersky?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I started reading this article and I was like, oh, this makes sense, right? With the war going on and that sort of stuff. And it was extended. I was like, oh, okay, cool. When?
Yeah, I didn't even know we had a national
either, right?
emergency.
I thought the same thing. Like if a hurricane rips through, or like 85 feet of snow drops, in New England, it's a state of emergency, and we know about it, and we know when it was declared. And I started looking through this article, and it said, yes, it's been extended. And I was like, wow, from when? And it says the national emergency was declared April 1st, 2015. So apparently for the last 7 years, we've been in a state of emergency. I didn't even know.
Dude,
I didn't even know.
April 1st. April 1st. Is this an April
I don't
Fool's
think
joke?
it is.
I don't think so.
But because
I mean, why would Obama on April 1st say we have a national emergency and now nobody
because
cares
the government
about it?
does things on April 1st, not thinking that it's funny.
Yeah, because if you take a look, they even go through and chronicle, like, okay, on December 28th, there was an executive order 13757 that amended to it, and then there was cyber-enabled malicious activity, which was the executive order 13694. So there's a lot of detail in here. I don't think it has anything to do with April 1st. But it's interesting.
I don't know for a fact that I'm right, but if I had to suspect, I think that some of this is tied to allowing the NSA and allowing Cyber Command to do certain things.
Yes.
To have the ability to monitor certain things. And so it's kind of like, state of emergency, so I can, get cars off the road so I can plow. State of emergency, so I can get Cyber, Command to be able to do certain things and check things.
So it's interesting you bring that up, Patrick, because the formation of Cyber Command, it used to be cyber operations, offensive cyber operations needed the president's, clearing. Yeah, exactly. And now Cyber Command has a lot of lateral movement where they can perform necessary tasks. And you might be right. It might just be because we're under the state of emergency.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. It does give Cyber Command, which I think is good. I mean, they need to be able to respond to threats as quickly as possible, right? So if you can cut some of that bureaucratic nonsense out, that's good.
Well, I guarantee our enemies are not going through the motions of, can we do this up
right.
the chain?
No.
One of the classic gaffes of military expediency was the story about LBJ trying to tell a gunner in the Gulf of Tonkin what he could and couldn't shoot at over a radio conversation. You don't want that. You want to enable your commanders. You want to enable the people. You have to pick people you trust and then enable them. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's good. So yeah. So I found it ironic that we've extended this state of emergency and being in the cyber field. I didn't even know we were in a state of, well, Patrick and I have been saying that, we've been in the cyber war forever and nobody's noticed
it. But it's beneficial since 2015.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And oddly enough, you had mentioned Kaspersky, Carl, but Kaspersky, I want to say it was like 2015 or 2016, the last time they were in the news. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that was the time when the government was saying the military and government contractors shouldn't use it.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't saying that it was like, forbidden that nobody should use it in the West. They were saying, look, if you want to do business with the government, don't use it.
Have you guys heard the rumor that Zoom is like a spyware for the Chinese government?
No,
I haven't.
I haven't heard that.
That's interesting. No, I've the only thing I've heard of Zoom recently is one of the Zoom engineers has actually been leaking some of the lapsus documents from Mandiant's reports and that sort of stuff. All above board.
And we'll talk about lapsus in a minute. But, I thought about it that it's probably the perfect spyware situation because all Zoom clients go through a central server. Like you're not broadcasting video to all 10 of the people in your meeting all at the same time. You're sending your video out to a central place. And then that central place is disseminating it and dispersing it to everyone else. So that means that server, wherever it is in the perfect position to harvest information from those video streams.
Sure.
I mean, and that's easy to do. I mean, with even rudimentary AI stuff and, looking at speech recognition.
I think I would know if Zoom was a Chinese company, wouldn't I?
I don't know if it's a Chinese company. Certainly not, but certainly, it's ripe for it's a good soft target.
Yeah, it's ripe for exploitation. But was the story you think you might have heard that they were, as a company, doing the Kaspersky thing, where the company was alleged to be betraying, or is it just bad employees?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Have no idea. It was just somebody whose opinion I trust very much said, I never use Zoom because Chinese government's spying on you. Okay. So, and I went looking and I couldn't really find anything other than a few, is this true? I heard this rumor. So who knows?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Maybe I'll check it out on Snopes. I don't know if I went that far.
I was going to say, yeah. I see, just doing a quick search, there's a couple articles out there about the Chinese Communist Party is using Zoom as a way to spy on our citizens, but I don't know if any of those are valid or not. Yeah, we'll have to dig into that. Maybe we'll have an update next week.
Cool. Yeah, I'd like to know that because I use Zoom all the time. And I talk about completely boring things that the Chinese government would be like, oh my God, this is terrible.
They might like your channel, Carl.
Why are we watching this?
They might like your channel.
What's
that?
They
might like your channel.
Yeah, here you go. So according to Business Insider, foreign intelligence operatives are reportedly using online platforms and video conferencing apps like Zoom to spy on Americans. Foreign intelligence agents.
That means that they're using.
What's that?
They're using the product, but they're not the product itself.
Using products like.
Yeah, Chinese spies in particular have exploited the coronavirus pandemic to get information about American companies as they take their operations digital, blah, 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 blah. The video conferencing app Zoom has proven particularly susceptible to cyber intrusions because of its popularity.
When was this?
This was April of 2020. So this is
a year ago.
I think that was right before they started requiring passwords and all that stuff. That they were people were dropping in on.
They've definitely had some issues over the last 2 years. Zoom has, and they've done a pretty decent job of tightening up security. So hopefully none of that's true anymore. But you know what? I'm going to take a look this week, anyways.
So the funny thing about Zoom is that the reason they got into trouble is Patrick's law. We should call it Patrick's law. Or Patrick's razor.
Yes, I like Patrick's razor.
Heinz razor, which is convenience is the enemy of security. They made it so easy to get online and do talk to people. That's why everybody liked it.
Yep.
Yeah,
and that ease of access is ultimately what made it insecure when it became popular.
Yeah, we could have
right around April 2020.
Yeah,
having a meeting as a podcast would also be very convenient. Well, anybody could download it. What
are you saying, Patrick?
I'm just saying that it's very convenient.
What are you saying?
Pulling out my razor,
Patrick.
All right. So speaking of the FBI, because they have on their most wanted page, most wanted information about lapses.
Yes. So it's interesting. The lapses thing has been fascinating over the last week and a half or 2 weeks.
We talked about it last week, but catch us up on it.
We did. So they had breached some high profile companies, and then there was a crackdown in the UK, and some 17-year-old kid and a bunch of other kids got 16 to 21-year-olds got arrested, and quote unquote, I say arrested. I heard rumor that they were released, and now the FBI is coming out and saying they want any information they can about lapses. And then if you start following a lot of the either Twitter feeds or dark web forums, most Lapsus is still posting saying, hey, we're still here, guys. I don't know what you're talking about. Like that has nothing to do with us.
Well, they've been bragging about having this stuff and that they took credit for the theft and dissemination of proprietary data. They still say they have it. So it's not like they're hiding it.
Nope.
Well, they're bragging about it. But remember,
if you have an organization with 10 people and 6 of them get arrested or 7 of them get arrested, it behooves everyone for them to keep the ones who aren't under observation to keep posting, because it makes it look like they got the wrong people.
Yeah, so it's an interesting tactic. And they even this week, it was this week, and it was one of the links I had posted, Carl, but it's actually been ripped down. on my Twitter feed, there were screenshots of Lapsus showing that they had breached dev platforms for Alphabet, for Apple, and there was another sort of big name out there. I don't know why Cyberint's coming into mind, but there was a couple of them, and I went back to get the list of companies, and that tweet's actually been ripped down. So I'm not sure, but it sounds like Lapsus is definitely publishing even more information that they have access to. And now speculation is, wait, did Lapsus, when they broke into Okta, did they get access to all these companies? And Okta says, no, they didn't get access to that. And then some people are saying, well, wait, did Lapsus maybe get access to an open source, like a GitHub repo, where they actually can get like access to private repos and see, because it seems like it's always code drops, right? It's like, here's all of Microsoft's code, here's all of Apple's code, and it's like, okay, did they get access to some sort of code repo, or do they have a bug in there? So people are still trying to speculate on where Lapsus is getting their information, and really how deep they are in an organization. So
we haven't heard the end of them just because of the arrests.
Yeah, just because the arrests. I think we'll probably see a lot more leaks coming from them. And like I said, just like Carl had said, just seeing how serious this is, the FBI is throwing out a, hey, we're willing to pay for anybody who has information on who these people are. That was just 10 days ago. That was announced at the FBI on their most wanted list,
which was before the arrests.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and has not been pulled down. Still seeking information. So I don't know if the people that they arrested are still a part of Lapsus, but they've determined you're not kind of the head of the group, or if they've cleared them. I have no idea. I haven't seen anything officially announced.
Yeah, things don't move that quickly.
Right? Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, I don't know that they would let them out on their own recognizance, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, if they're minors, they probably would.
Yeah.
Because especially in the European system.
Mm-hmm.
In Texas, they'd be on death row by now.
Wow.
You could take that as a negative or a positive, depending on your perspective.
We either just lost or gained Texas listeners. Who knows?
I think maybe both, hopefully. Well, not hopefully.
No,
you know what I'm saying. So let's talk about spring. And I'm not talking about the season or the play, springtime in the Rockies, whatever the hell it was. I'm talking about Spring, which I believe is a Java language,
framework.
Right? A language that runs on the JDE.
Yeah. You know what? I saw this article about Spring, and I at first bypassed it because I was like, I really don't care about the weather. I sit behind a monitor all the time, and I'm at my desk. And then I saw that it was associated with some sort of an exploit, and I was like, okay, I'll take a peek. And I'm glad I did, because this is awesome.
There was an article. I don't have a reference to it, but there was an article that a researcher came out with an exploit for this and a previously unknown 0 day for Spring. And I think it might have been Rapid7 or one of those organizations that sent me an email about it. And then they said that, but then the data, the report disappeared. But supposedly there was a reproducible exploit that a researcher published, and that's how it kind of got spilled. It got spilled inadvertently, basically early.
Yeah, and I don't know about it getting spilled early, but it is right now being compared to potentially as dangerous as Log4j.
Log4j.
They're calling it Log for Spring, right?
Or Spring for Shells. That's it.
Spring for Shells.
Spring. I knew it was something like that. Yeah. If the number 4 is in it, it's got to be.
Log4 Shells is the exploit for Log4j.
This is Spring for Shells. So what's interesting about this particular vulnerability, one of the reasons, so it's downgraded from its CVE sort of level, is not like a 9 destructive, the whole internet's going to fall apart like Log4j was.
And to remind people, CVE stands for
Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. That's what CVE stands for. We just call it CVE. We just use acronyms. We don't know what they stand for.
That's right. We use TLAs. 3-letter acronyms. So RCE stands for Remote Control Execution. I know that.
Yeah, so this was in Spring. So Spring Cloud Function, which is, you're right, Carl, is a set of Java libraries that you could be using to do all sorts of things. It's it's a framework.
UI library.
Right.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about this exploit is that it is super easy to exploit. Literally one line in a
Sounds like
command prompt.
Log4j.
Yeah, and I think that's why people are likening it to Log4j, is because there's no barrier to entry.
It's also hard to know where it affects you because it's buried in Java apps. Most people don't know whether their apps are written in Java or Python or what.
Right.
And they certainly don't know what frameworks they use. This is where software bill of materials matters.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, agreed. I mean, understanding whether you're using this framework or not. We actually will post a link. There's a tweet from ByteHex with literally a one-liner, a spring.cloud.function.routing expression. Get runtime.execute xcalc, and he shows like literally a Linux calculator popping up on his computer. And he's running that through Burp Suite, right? So, Burp Suite's just a security tool that allows you to manipulate web requests and calls. So you can see in this one screenshot.
After I eat a hot fudge sundae.
Burp Suite.
I burp sweet.
Boom.
And then I go to the hospital with high blood sugar. Never mind. Lord, I apologize. So it actually has been quite an active week.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
And most of the things we've talked about today have patches. Like everything, it's got patches. Go out and patch. Maybe that should be.
Or recommendations like get Kaspersky off of every computer you have.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the patch there is remove it. Actually, and then burn your computer. And then.
I think we're going to hear a lot more about the Spring exploit next week.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is a fairly new announcement. I'd say it's within the last 24 hours that more researchers are coming out with, hey, here's how simple I could run it against this. Here's how simple I could run it against here. So it'll be interesting to see next week. We might have more details on this.
Okay, cool. I'm going to call this show Springtime Brings Spring Vulnerabilities.
Woohoo!
Fair enough.
And it's awesome, right, Dwayne?
Oh, it's so awesome. It's so awesome. It's great. It's great. It's awesome.
All right. I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.